This is Laurie Beagle. I'm Managing Director of Forums International. And as you can see, we've called this After the Lockdown, Driving the Future. And I really sincerely hope this is looking very much at the future. We've been in lockdown since March 2020. And it has had very much a lasting impact on our lives, the future of businesses. But now I'm hoping we're starting to get to some level of normality, and I see that credit professionals are going to play a big part in helping their businesses drive the future, and also perhaps filling in that big hole that we've actually developed over the last 3 months. So this will be a discussion. We've already have some questions, and as Nicholas said, please, if you've got some questions along the way, use the chat button and we'll pick those up as we go. So I'm very pleased to introduce the panel. So go to the next one. Those of you who don't know me, Laurie Beagle, I'm a member of the Advisory Council. I'm a past chair of the CICM, and I'm Managing Director of Forums International. Also, we have Martin Brook, who's over 30 years experience in credit management industry. And he's also a consultant partner for Forums International, as well as him trading in his own name. I'll let you read the rest of Martin's bio there yourselves. We also have with us Pete Colby, not a credit person, but nevertheless a key member of the team. Pete is the founder of Pragmatism UK, who specialise in resolving disputes through mediation and helping organisations to not only prevent workplace disputes, but maximise productivity through people. So we're very pleased to have Pete on with the team, and we're looking forward to his input. Next we have Matt Godby, very well known to us all. I'm sure you've read Matt's articles in the CICM magazine recently, and Matt has been a credit leader for the last 20 years, and he provides expertise across the whole order to cash cycle. So thank you, Matt, for joining us as well. And last but not least, John Swan, very, very well known, I think, to most of us, a good friend of mine, and very much a big supporter of Forums International Forums. John is Head of Credit Services at Hachette, who are book publishers and distributors. I'm not sure I'm getting that right, John. And they export to over 110 different countries, and he's on the branch of the Thames Valley. So guys, thank you very much indeed. Really looking forward to listening to your questions, to the answers to some of the questions we already have lined up for you. So but again, please, if you have any questions, use the chat button and we'll pick them up as we go. We may well end up having more questions than time available. So, but be assured that every question that is posed, we will actually, at some time over the next week or so, we will publish an article or a blog with those questions and the answers from the panel, so they're not going to get lost. So we will make sure that we actually make good use of those. So to kick off, first one is, we're going to aim this at John to start. Staff members will have varying levels of anxiety around returning to work. How best do we manage those at the more worried end? Sorry, the more worried end of the range. So, John, let's over to you.
Thanks, Laurie. It's a very good question, and I'm sure it's something that most, if not all of us, are either facing now or are going to face imminently. in terms of where we are with the Hachette, to give you a view of our position in terms of returning to the office, as of Monday, a large percentage of customer services will be returning, and then phased through August and into September, the rest of the organisation. So my team will be fully back to work in the office in September. One of the challenges we have had, although it's a brand new building and we've got plenty of space, we don't have sufficient desks for everybody to be in on the office at any one time. So we have 25 people and we have 18 desks. So 7 people on any one day are going to be either working from home, or they could be on sick leave or on annual leave. One of the things that we have had varying levels of people with this sort of level of anxiety, and we're doing the best we can, and we are listening to people. We did send out a questionnaire to all staff members, asking them, it's quite a detailed questionnaire, asking them about the sort of things that they were concerned about. And we've got straight after this, we've got a town hall meeting, which the executive is hosting, and a lot of the questions there will also be some of these questions around what are we doing to be COVID secure as much as we possibly can. So we are engaging with people, we are listening to their concerns. Some of the concerns, I would say, are a little extreme. For example, we had one person who asked whether we're going to be on-site testing. So I thought that we're going to have people in full PPE doing swab tests. It's, obviously isn't going to happen. We're doing a number of things. First of all, no one is going to have a permanent desk. They're going to be moving around desks, and those desks are going to be completely clear of anything. So the days of people having holiday mementos and photographs of loved ones and cats and dogs, those days for the moment are certainly gone. The offices are going to be extensively cleaned at least twice a day. We are investing in these misting machines, which are going to be coming in on a regular basis, that lay down this film that gets rid of the virus and stops other viruses spreading. So we're doing a lot to encourage our people, to say to them, look, this is a safe environment. It's probably a safer environment than when you go shopping, or when you go to the pub, or when you go out on the bus. So we're trying to encourage them, but we're not really pushing people very, very hard. And of course, those who have been shielded, we have to be extra careful with, and we need to obviously listen to their concerns as well. Finally, in terms of flexibility, we are saying to our people that no one is going to get 4 or 5 days working from home as a flexible working. So the maximum you will be able to work from home is 3 days a week. And obviously, with having to reduce the numbers in the office at only one day, the challenge is twofold. One, we've got to do a rota that's seen to be fair, but also the team leaders and the managers are going to have to manage people both on site and remotely. So there comes a little bit of a challenge for that. So, so overall, I think it's encouraging people, making sure that they understand what it is we're doing to make the offices and the environment as safe as we possibly can. And once people start coming back and get used to seeing the new way of working, we're confident that those at the more worried end will get their confidence fully back and get back to normality to an extent.
It certainly sounds as if you're developing what will be the new normal then, really.
Yeah, well, we don't know how long obviously this is going to be on for. So as far as we're concerned, we're planning for at least a year of this.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any comments on that at all?
John, are you finding much resistance in terms of the staff, resisting what Hachette are trying to do?
It's a good question, Martin. It varies. I think we've probably seen more resistance in the credit team than we have in customer services. But I think that's it's not a personality thing. I think that's more the case that the credit team are a very well established and experienced team, and they have been probably more productive working from home than other areas of business where you've got much younger people who haven't been with the business very long, and a lot of their work is very much telephone based, and we've got some technology challenges around the Citrix operation for external calls coming in, which credit generally we tend to use email more. So I don't think it's that in our case, I don't think there's very many within the credit team who are anxious about coming back to work. Some of them more anxious about using public transport, but I just think they've got comfortable. I think they got into a comfortable routine working from home. So with them, it's really a question of sort of encouraging those to sort of say you need to start getting back into the office 1 or 2 days a week throughout August to get used to it, and then in September we're all back, apart from obviously those days when 7 people have to be working off site.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. We'll move on to the next question, hopefully. We seem to have gone out slightly out of order here, but let's go back. Okay. Let's just move my screen down so I can see. Okay, this one's for Pete. So how do you see the future of work in terms of flexible working, in particular working from home? So I think it's one for you, Pete.
Yeah, I think, you know, as John said, you know, things are already changing and organisations are, you know, expecting this to be, or at least probably the rest of this year. So it's naturally changing. I'm given what we do, mediation, I'm seeing quite a few of these issues coming up, and you know, back to the last conversation about reasons, you know, it's ranging from I've just got a new puppy to some really genuine reasons. But I think the flexibility of working from home, etc., is definitely going to change, because people are experiencing some of the benefits of more productive working. They're also seeing some of the need for different styles of leadership, and how they're engaging with people. I think a lot of organisations that I'm talking to are already looking at, is this a great cost saving opportunity, i.e. we're spending X thousands, hundreds of thousands in some cases on infrastructure and buildings, do we need those? So I am a little bit concerned that some organisations are going to go to an extreme and then probably come back a little bit, i.e. everybody's going to work from home, and then they'll miss all the dynamics of people interacting with each other in person. But interestingly, the landscape of employment law was already changing prior to COVID-19. So as we all know, that as employers we have to give consideration to flexible working. Well, the courts are actually looking at changing employment law now to being the default answer is yes to a flexible working request, and then the employer has to explain why the answer would be no. So it was already moving that way, and I think everything we've been going through over the last 3 months or so is heightening that, but in some ways easing it as well, because people have seen some of the benefits of that flexible working. But it's most definitely a changing world.
Yep, I agree. Anyone else want to add to that?
I think you're right, Pete, that certainly the client I'm working with, a particular client at the moment, and I think that COVID-19 has somewhat forced the hand in flexible working. Flexible working has been talked about ever since I've been in work, so 30 years probably. And I think that this has somewhat forced that hand. And it's shown in many respects what's possible and what's not in terms of the flexible working practices, in terms of working from home, working remotely. So I think that certainly the evidence shows now that there's plenty of jobs that can be worked flexibly, and in terms of remote working as well. And so it's yeah, certainly the times we're in at the moment, going back to wherever the old normal was, is gone now. I think it's a permanent position now where, you know, as you rightly say, the flexible working patterns are here to stay, really, irrespective of what the law was going to say coming down the line.
Just one thing to add as well. We're also seeing a little bit of a polarization, because obviously some roles just cannot. If you're operating a machine in a factory, it's quite hard to do that from home. And there is a little bit of resentment building as well for people that perceive working from home to be a very easy option, and those that can't do that. So that's also something that I think we're going to see more of in the future.
Someone said to me, someone actually said to me the other day that they banned the phrase working from home because that has all the connotations of sitting on the end of your bed with a laptop perched on your knee, and it's actually remote working, not working from home, which has a different kind of connotation to it, which I thought was quite insightful.
It's interesting. I think we've all now proved that technology can work for working from home or working flexibly. I suppose the other side of it is that everybody's just got to have the trust and trust your people that they're working. So thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on to the next one. Sorry if these are just the next one is slightly out of order here. It's because I played with these slides beforehand. Apologies for this. Okay, so the next one is for Matt. Do you feel that businesses can learn from this crisis in terms of cash flow management and customer relationships?
Yes, is the answer to that, and I think that it's quite. It would be quite good just to recap on where we've been to some extent. And I know that this is talking about the future. But there's a lot of businesses that I've spoken to over the last few months who have been really struggling, not just because of the economy essentially being put into hibernation, but also because of their own credit management practices being quite poor in the first place. So they're coming from a very low position, then hitting the crisis, and then having to cope with that. So the simple answer to that is yes, they can learn. And I think many businesses aren't particularly good at engaging with customers and talking about money, depending on the size of business. And I think that there are certain industries that aren't particularly good at that. Legal sector is one, and obviously there are exceptions to the rule, but they're notoriously quite poor at speaking with their clients about money. And I think also there's there needs to be a real realignment with businesses talking not just about revenues, but also about cash flow. And the old adage that many credit professionals will be familiar with on this call is that a sale's not a sale until it's been paid for. So talking about actually cash and getting paid by customers is quite crucial. I think also businesses can very much learn from this in terms of their technologies, reviewing the technologies they have within their business to allow the more flexible working and working from home that Pete talked about. And also finally, what I would say is around the leadership as well. Remote working and the type of working that I think is going to be the future, albeit probably not as extreme as we're in at the moment. There are going to be a lot more people working from home. Which means you need to have the technologies in place to be able to do that. And many businesses haven't been geared up to do that. So at the start of this crisis, from quite a long time afterwards, you had a lot of businesses where the actual roles themselves could work from home, but the business's technology simply couldn't adapt to that. So they were having to furlough staff off because they simply couldn't work from home because the technologies wouldn't allow, but also because of the leadership wasn't in the right place to be able to direct those staff as they would need to be. So yeah, certainly we need to learn from this crisis. And I think businesses, hopefully this is going to be a wake-up call to concentrate a lot more on meaningful engagement with their customers and regular engagement and talking to those customers and supporting those customers from a position of getting paid for the sales and services you provide.
Yeah, thanks,
Matt, can I just sort of add to that? I do a lot of work in the, I'll say probably the micro business area. So I just want to reiterate what Matt said there in terms of people are worried about asking for their own money. And that's something I'm trying to educate a lot of my clients and local networking events that I present at, to make sure they're on top of collecting their money, because found a lot of businesses now are actually starting to collect money from January, February, so prior lockdown, and they should have been on top of that before we even went in. So yeah, I'm hoping that businesses will learn from this, because now that receivable is 6 months old, it now becomes harder to collect. So the earlier you're on it, the better. So Matt, I fully agree with what you're saying, and I'm finding a lot of organisations for some reason think their accountants can collect their money as well, which is a concern. Nothing against accountants, but they're not trained in collecting their clients' cash. So just want to put that point on top of what Matt said.
I'd also add into that as well, Martin, that the other conversations we're having as well, or the advice I'm providing, is very much around at the moment. Businesses, your customers need your support. So whereas you've got to be commercially astute in collecting the money and having those conversations, you've also got to be aware that those businesses are in real financial straits at the moment themselves. So you need to be giving the relevant support to those customers as well where you can. And that's always the case with good credit management practices. It's always that fine balance between the commercial requirements of your own cash flow, as well as providing the necessary support to your customers as a responsible supplier of that.
That's very, very true, Matt. That's a very good point about the customer relationships. What we experienced very, very soon after lockdowns occurred in Europe, and then again, obviously in the United Kingdom, we had some of our customers come to us and just basically saying, right, there's been a lockdown, we're not going to be selling much, so we're not going to be paying you for 3 or 4 months, so take it or leave it. But then we have some customers who came to us and were very open and honest, and they communicated with us. In some cases, we had regular catch-ups on Zoom or whatever with their executives. They explained the situation they were in. They understood if we weren't able to give them extended credit. And in those situations, where that there is an open communication and a sharing of information, it makes us as the customer, sorry, it makes us as the supplier rather, more lenient and more likely to help that customer get themselves through that short-term period. And clearly, we knew we had customers who were just using lockdown as an effective way of just saying, right, well, I'm going to take an extra 90 days, 120 days credit. And so we sort of had a different strategy depending on the way that customer explained the situation and kept that flow of information going. And I think that is something which has come out of this, that we're going to continue to adopt more than we probably did before this whole thing started in March.
It comes back to trust and getting to know your customer. So it comes back to trust. So if there's a mutual trust both ways, then that's a good starting point. You know, as you say there, John, those customers that are coming to you clearly trust you as a supplier, and likewise, you know, as a supplier, you've got to trust those customers that they're actually having honest conversations with you rather than just trying to spin you a line. So it comes back to meaningful conversations and regular ones with your customers. That's how you build trust, and that's how you get to know your customer base.
Yeah, absolutely right, Matt.
You know, I've heard from some of our forum members, Matt, that they're spending more time now because of either on Zoom or actually on the telephone with their customers, getting perhaps closer to I'm sure this is not right across the board, but some of them are getting closer to their customers, spending more time talking to them, getting to know them a bit more, getting to know them a bit more personally as well. Now, hopefully that will build, and hopefully that will be a good foundation for the relationship going forward. So hopefully that's one of the positives out of that. So. Okay, thank you very much indeed. We'll try and find the next one. It's here somewhere, Martin.
Oh, me, is it?
It's there somewhere. It's there somewhere. I shuffled the pack too many times, I think. So,
I'll answer about the limited companies.
That's all right. I'll find it. We'll get it. So sorry, guys. I shouldn't have shuffled this pack quite so many times.
No, that's
no. It's here somewhere. If not, I shall read it out. Ah, there we go. There we go. You're there. Right. Okay. insolvency practitioners who have stated that April and May 2020 has seen the lowest insolvency rate on record. When do you, as credit managers, see the effects of the pandemic hitting companies, and to what severity? So over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Laurie, for such a lovely question.
It is wrong, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually sit on an event every other Monday, which includes a few accountants and insolvency practitioners, and that is absolutely true. I was quite surprised to hear that it was the lowest level of insolvencies on record. However, obviously, what that proves is that it's very much being propped up by government-backed, etc. So, obviously, not to be fooled. And I thought that insolvency practitioners also might be busy by this time, but having spoke to one yesterday, they're not. They are still waiting for this tsunami to come over the mountain. So, I think from a credit management perspective, there will be a lot that will, say, bypass me or my help and credit managers' help and go straight into insolvency. But those businesses that at least went in a decent shape, as I think Matt alluded to earlier, will hopefully have the brains, if that's the right word, to get some help to get themselves out of it before they do go insolvent. So where I see the biggest impact is probably Q1, Q2 probably of 2021, simply because, you know, bounce backs, CBILS, deferments, and obviously furlough will be a distant memory because that's due to end at the end of October. Once these types of things need repaying, and obviously companies have got to make decisions on staff, I do honestly see the biggest impact in insolvencies will be in Q1, Q2, 2021. Could start to happen before that, but that is where I see the biggest impact coming. The severity, I can't be sure, but unfortunately it will be severe. To what percentage of companies will lose? I've heard it talked about that we could lose 11 million businesses. I don't know how true that is, but those are figures that are sort of being bandied around. So yeah, that's my opinion. I don't have a crystal ball, I'm afraid.
So are these going to be the same old businesses as we, which are the top of the heap, the retail and construction, and or are we talking about across the board, do you think?
I think we're talking about across the board, Laurie, but obviously some industries are going to get hit worse than others. I think we all know that the events and travel, hospitality, those types of things, obviously retail will continue to suffer. And construction, I can't really comment on, but I guess that will see some struggles too.
Well, I think construction was already hit very hard by the effects of Brexit, and this was a double whammy to construction. So I know that construction is opening up a little bit now, but what I read is that half of the high street could be at risk by the end of the summer, and also there's going to be a lag with the legal sector. And I mentioned earlier on that the legal sector are quite unique, shall we say. And there's going to be a natural lag in terms of the failures that may well happen within law firms and law practices and the legal sector. What I do see, though, in certain industries is that, sorry to take over on this, what I do see in certain industries, though, is that there's going to be an opportunity there for a reset. So those that, it's very unfortunate, there's going to be lots of businesses that are going to fail, but what you're going to have, the businesses that get through it are going to be the ones that are stronger and the strongest. And you're also going to get these disruptors that are coming into the industries, those industries as well. They're going to be a lot more better equipped and a lot more adaptable to be able to cope with the crises that come our way. So there's an opportunity there. It's an unfortunate byproduct of many businesses that might fail. But the unfortunate byproduct of that, I think, is that in many industries will come out all the stronger.
And possibly more mergers, do you not think? Mergers, acquisitions, etc. Possibly.
Yeah. I think it's difficult to judge. I don't know, to be honest, Martin. Yeah,
No.
it's a difficult one to judge that.
I hear that the number of companies being registered at Companies House is actually probably the biggest ever, and so there is a school of thought that says maybe those are already there for pre-packs. So we're just waiting in the wings for the what if day. So
yes.
I think there are some unknowns still that are on the horizon that will drive when the wave of insolvencies hit us. It could be earlier than obviously Q1 of next year. And interestingly enough, one of our customers has been reporting to us that in terms of footfall, they're seeing footfall in the market towns that's pretty good, but they're reporting that the footfall in the big cities and the big town centres, the shopping centres, is poor. So I think it's a lot to do with getting people confident enough to go back into get used to shopping again. Obviously, during lockdown, a lot of people turned to Amazon either for the first time or they started using Amazon and other brands are available for online shopping. So it's a question of how many of those people are actually going to go back to shopping in the normal environment. And then there is another question that a few retailers are already asking: is the compulsory wearing of masks is going to put people off? The intention is to encourage people to go to shops, but some retailers are saying that they believe the opposite may be the case. So there are some unknown variables that may dictate whether or not companies will fail before the end of the year or in the new year. The other thing that may come into play is the fact that we obviously have a number of zombie companies in the United Kingdom. That they were zombie companies when lockdown happened, and with lockdown easing and the end of the furlough and all the government support, creditors removing their support, etc., these zombies will cease to exist.
You're right.
Yep. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I'm just see that we can find a question for Pete, I think, because he's been sitting there very quietly. So I think this is a good one for you, Pete.
Well,
Pete.
No, there's a better one for that than you, isn't that? So just.
I'm always well behaved, Matt.
So, how would you advise employers to plan for such an unknown and unexpected event in the future? Of course, there is a school of thought saying that we've just gone through this and we're perhaps coming out the back end. Are we actually going to be going back into it again in the winter months? So, I don't know. So there you go, Pete. There's a good question.
Thanks for the easy question, Laurie. How to plan for something unexpected. Great. I think it's a good question, and I just think it would be a massive lost opportunity for any organisation to not reflect on this at the appropriate time and look back at everything that's gone off and everything that's actually gone well and things that have not gone so well, and to build that into their future business planning, contingency planning, risk analysis, all that good stuff. Because although we talk about a lot of the negatives and especially from a people perspective, there's been some incredible positives. And I've worked with a lot of organizations that have actually switched their thinking about some of their people. The people that they thought were absolutely fantastic have maybe not proven to be during this period. And people that they thought the opposite of have actually turned out to be the unsung heroes of the last few months. And I'm a big believer in root cause. And I think naturally we tend to look at root cause from a negative perspective, what went wrong. But I think there's some fantastic opportunities to look at what went well and what was the root cause of that, because it will probably be people at the root of that. People were doing something differently, or people created a system, or people did something, and to not harness that fantastic learning opportunity would be a real shame. And I think sometimes we're great at firefighting and we overcome disasters in business, but we don't then take the opportunity of taking the learnings and and building them into our plannings to make the business stronger and to, you know, to make sure we go through the next crisis. So you can't plan for everything. If it's an unknown, you can't plan for everything. But we've just had a fantastic opportunity and been shown lots of things that 6 months ago we wouldn't have even thought was, you know, if we'd have said we were going to send pretty much most of the UK workforce home and, you know, being furloughed and paying them 80% and billions and billions of pounds of government support, you know, people would have laughed at us. So I would say take the opportunities and build them into your processes.
Think outside the box.
Yeah, and we've been forced to, haven't we? Because, you know, we all lived in a box of reality that was reality then. Our box is now bigger. Our box of experience is now far bigger. And as I say, I think we sometimes just think a sigh of relief, we've got over that crisis whenever we get over the crisis. But we don't take the learnings, and they're so rich. They're so rich. And as I say, I think some of the people things, either the people that now need addressing going forward because they've not pulled up trees, they've not done what, you know, we're paying them great salaries to do. Organisations need to address those sorts of people, but also the people that have just, I'm hoping there's a lot of organisations out there that are at least saying a really heartfelt thank you to some people, because as I say, at the root cause of those amazing things that have been achieved, there's a person or people at the root of those. And just a simple thank you, if it's genuine, yeah, it costs nothing, and it's so much more powerful than a £100 bonus or something.
I agree entirely. Yeah, a pat on the back sometimes goes a lot further than anything else. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm
going to have to leave the call now as expected. Sorry about that, but I hope it goes well for the rest of it. And okay. Thank you for inviting me in. It's been a pleasure taking part.
Okay. John's is so popular, he's having to juggle his time today. So.
I'm on to another webcam. Cheers, everyone.
Okay. Thanks. Well, we're going to do a question for you next anyway, John. We'll do it in your absence instead. So.
All right. Thank you very much.
We'll tell you the answer. Okay. All right. So should companies be looking at reinforcing their risk policies to try and identify those customers at greater risk from the lockdown effects, especially once furlough winds down? So which is furlough's going to finish what, October time, isn't it? So so do you think we should be looking at the reinforcing credit policies or what? Any thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. It's quite. I wish that was my question actually, because I'm working with a client at the moment, which they've just got those kind of challenges. So reacting to what's coming through, reacting to the administrations and all of the financial strains that are going on, rather than being proactive. So yes, they certainly should, along with all the other credit management policies that they may not have been taking as much care of as they once did. And I'm sure there's many businesses on this call that are fairly small business, SMEs, and perhaps even owner-managed businesses. So risk policies don't necessarily have to be a grand credit policy for businesses, some of the high kind of corporations. If you're just an owner-managed business and there's only 2 or 3 staff that you have within your business, it can just be 2 or 3 pages long. And all it sets out are how you onboard a customer into your business, what kind of credit checks you might do, what their payment terms are, and so on and so forth. So it just means that you've got a consistency of approach with each of your customers as you onboard them into your business. And you're also taking on the customers you want, not necessarily customers you don't. And the customers you want are the ones that are going to pay you. If they're not going to pay you, there's no point in taking them on at all, because all that will do is you don't get paid, and it will actually cost you money trying to get paid. So in actual fact, the margin you might be making on the sale, you may well be losing by all the enforcement action you might take to try and get paid. So the simple answer is yes.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that, Matt. One of the busiest areas for me at the moment is actually producing that 1 or 2 page document that I call a credit policy, which actually lays out all them things you just said. And it's a document that, like you say, no matter what customer they bring on board, which salesman they bring on board, everyone follows a set of rules, and you know, the due diligence is followed properly. So in a structured way. So I fully agree with what Matt just said.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've done a few sessions on credit policies at the forums over the years, and yeah, a lot of people have thought that the credit policy is the real thick document. It's not. It's the thin document. How to do it is the thick document, if you like. And,
the good thing about
and
sorry, the good thing about a credit policy as well is that far from it can be quite onerous for large organisations. I've written more credit policies than I care to remember for large and smaller organisations, but for the larger organisations, the good thing about developing a credit policy is you've got to, by definition, engage with all of the relevant departments within that organisation to get that credit policy written and accurate and fit for purpose. And so it's a real opportunity to be engaging with those departments and almost taking almost starting from scratch to some extent in terms of how people do things, how the department's doing things, and just understanding these workarounds that have been done that way for many, many years for no other reason than they've always been done that way. So the credit policies actually become an opportunity to open up a dialogue with other departments on how to do things better. And also for the staff as well, of course, the credit policy is there to provide them with the support and the direction on how they go about their daily job from the support of the management of that organisation.
Yeah, I know the question talks about reinforcing risk policies, but maybe it's also an opportunity to review that that credit policy in light of today's environment, trading environment, and where you're going for the future, what your risk appetite is like, and any other things that you're having to do for your business to survive. And and that should be reflected in the policies. So
a lot of people don't have policies at all, Laurie. So
no, forgot about back of fag packets. I've seen a few. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, if you're lucky.
Laurie, just one question. I know we're talking policies, but there must be a hell of a lot of pressure on credit professionals who are there to chase this money up for organisations to basically survive. Are you seeing much, from a way of mental health issues, pressure, stress, all of that in the population that's actually applying these policies?
Personally, no. Personally, no, I haven't seen it, but I no doubt we will see it.
It's funny, I had this question only yesterday, as a matter of fact, with a client of mine, and I asked that question, and it was such a mixed bag of answers. At the moment, I'm supporting a team of 12 people, and they're all working from home, and they're all credit professionals. And I asked that outright question. I said, "How are you feeling personally?" Most of them said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I've not got a 3-hour commute into work. I'm feeling less stressed than I was before." Most of them said that, and they said, "Yeah, I don't know what other people are complaining about." Of course, what I said is that, well, you may be feeling like that, but there may be another 2 or 3 people that have been personally affected by coronavirus in some way, shape, or form, or they might have a partner who's been made redundant or on a redundancy list, or is still on furlough and concerned about their job. They might have kids that are still at home, so they're worried about trying to balance their work with their kids and what happens when they have to go back to work. So it's a really complicated picture of who's feeling the pressure and who's feeling stressed and their kind of mental health requirements.
I just think it might be something to be aware of as this tsunami of issues hits, because at the moment in it are functions like HR are obviously incredibly busy, incredibly stressed, and they're going through it now. But then as organisations are trying to survive, are trying to increase their cash flow, and the pressures on the staff to really get that money in, and the pressure comes from above to get that money in. It could be that wave moves into professions like credit control. So it's probably something that leaders in organisations need to be a little bit aware of that coming down the line.
Yeah, I agree. We did a session on mental health in the workplace about a month ago, I suppose, and one of those, what came out of that was some guidance for managers on how to spot somebody that's really struggling, and also to and what to do with that information, because it's very easy to just sweep it under the carpet, or just and it was a very, very interesting session, and something we said that we're going to come back to at some later stage, because it's such a big topic and we couldn't finish it off. So but that's
I mean, it's a massive topic,
very important.
And I mean, obviously I won't go into it now, but I've personally had experience of talking to somebody on the Friday who was in a very pressured job and seemed fine and was laughing and joking, and took his own life the next day. So it's, you know, it's a real, and it's just getting a bigger and bigger issue. So.
Yeah.
That was a cheery part of the conversation.
I was going to say that was going to be. Yeah. We're almost at the end here, Pete. That was not quite the end I wanted to have. I'm not sure we've actually got any other questions from anybody externally. Is there anybody out there that would like to pose a question at all? Because we're going to wrap up in a minute or two. Last opportunity. Just checking to make sure I've not missed anybody. Oh, we may have some here. So that's right. Bear with me. No. Okay, there's just in fact, there was one question very similar to that, just to build on that, just make it the last one, which was will we have to rebuild, or will you have to rebuild, or will our credit organisations have to rebuild their teams? We have to encourage those social connections, re-establish the normal routines, and engage the team's ideas as to what the new normal will be. And so, yeah, your thoughts on that, really? Because coming back into the office, yes, you can still have social distancing, and I know that we're hearing some feedback from people saying, you know, I really want to get back into the office because my social life revolves very much around me and the rest of my buddies in the office. So it's you know,
I mean,
any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pitch in on that one, Laurie. I would always, the answer for me on any question like that is yes, engage with your people. There are no two people that are the same, and we've all got our own different challenges and various things and preferences. And I mean, one of the common things is that, you know, that's coming out of this is that younger people have really struggled with working from home. So almost the younger you are, the more people have struggled. But again, that's a very sweeping statement, so it doesn't apply to everybody. And as we said on the other question about flexibility going forward, just talking to your people and understanding what they're about and what their preferences are, and trying to meet that match, and not just having policies that are blanket for everybody. I think you're then going to start to really maximize we all say that people are our greatest asset, but we don't always maximize that asset. We don't utilize that asset. And, you know, the more you can engage with people and understand their challenges and flex around them to make it as productive as you possibly can. It's hard to put a bottom line on that on a balance sheet, but it's massive, it's huge. So yeah, my answer would always be rebuild your team and engage with them and just flex around as much as you can.
Yeah,
I think given we're talking about the future, and I know that it's been well explained by everyone, talking about all the problems that this is created. But I'm with Pete, looking at the opportunities that can come out of this, and I think there's a real opportunity here in terms of the skills mix that you're going to be able to have. So with remote working and people not working in the office, you in theory, the skills that you can seek are worldwide. So I know that Laurie, we've spoken before, and the online webinars that you're doing now, there's people logging in from all over the world, which, in the good old days of having networking events face to face, that wouldn't necessarily happen. But the same transposes into businesses as well. If those businesses are supporting their staff in the right way to work remotely, then you're going to, by definition, attract better skilled staff anyway, because you're a good business to work for. But also you're then going to have the potential of bringing in those highly skilled staff from anywhere in the world, because they don't need to be in the office. You could have someone that's in Texas who's logging into your systems, and they're the highest skilled people that you want in your business. They don't necessarily need to be UK based, but that takes good leadership. It takes really effective leadership, and it also means that your policies and your process and your technologies and all the things that we've spoken about throughout this need to be really spot on and very, very well, just fit for purpose.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I'm a great believer in that credit professionals can learn from each other. Doesn't matter what industry they're in. It also doesn't matter where they are. It may be that, as you say, somebody in Texas doing a particular job over there is doing something differently to somebody in London. It's yeah, you can share that, and hopefully it's a good way of moving forward. So yeah, as you know, I'm a great believer in that, and Zoom has actually helped us considerably with that. So, gentlemen, I see the time, as we've almost come to time. Is there a final thought from everybody? Pete,
no, it's
a nice positive one this time.
Yeah, I won't talk about death this time. No, it's good. It's good to hear it from a specific angle as regards credit management. But like you just said about, I'm sure that getting cash in is the same worldwide. You sell something and you need to get that cash in. It's the same with people. They're all different worldwide. But I just think it's refreshing to talk about the future of things rather than what we're in now. And I think there are at least as many positives as there are negatives as regards the future, and we should really harness those. I think it's really quite an exciting future. So there you go, Laurie. That was a positive.
That was very good, Pete. Yeah, and Martin.
I just want to just sort of reiterate, I suppose, what everyone said on the call. I'm still seeing, certainly in the SME market, I'm still seeing a lot of businesses with their head in the sand. So I'm trying to encourage people to get their head out of it, because if they don't, then they're in trouble. So everything that's being discussed is what I'm encouraging into that market and all them business owners. It's just getting them to understand the importance of credit management and what it actually means to their business. That's the tough bit. And anyone that wakes up and realizes that credit management is key to their business is going to be successful and will survive through this situation. So that's really what I want to say, is those are the difficulties I'm having with some of the businesses I'm trying to talk to.
Thank you, Martin. Matt?
Yeah, just reinforce some of the things that I've said, really, and right at the outset. I said that the real kind of learning from this is that businesses need to be speaking with their customers, and they need to be having honest conversations. And they are the kind of businesses that are in a stronger position now than the ones that don't speak to their customers very much at all until the debt becomes really overdue. I think the second thing I'd say as well is that with all of the technology we've spoken about here and the opportunities, I think there's a real opportunity for businesses to get the skills that they need in the right parts of the business that they need, which you should always do anyway. But I think this puts that in sharp focus more than anything, of having the skilled people in the right parts of your business. And with remote working and the technologies that we've got, going back to what I said earlier on, this poor person in Texas that I'm employing without them knowing, that's where you can actually bring in the skills into your business that you need. There's the flexibility to be able to do that, rather than thinking in a very narrow form of bringing someone in to fill a seat. Think about bringing in the right skilled person to fill that seat.
Yeah. I remember back in 2008 when we had the financial meltdown. We said this is the time for credit managers. This is the time for them to really show their mettle, and also they're ready to come to the fore. I think the time has come again, really. If you like, I think we called this driving the future, and I'm a great believer that credit profession, whichever part of the credit profession you're in, you're in the driving seat if you really want to take up that mantle and help businesses, your customers, as well as your own businesses, get through this and hopefully survive at the outset. So I'd like to say thank you to. I'm sorry about. I'll apologise for my playing around with the slides beforehand. I wish I hadn't have done that. This is the contact details for all of the panelists. We'll make sure those are available to everybody. And I'd like to thank the panelists for answering all of the questions. We still have a few more questions to go. So as I said earlier, we will publish those, and we'll publish the panel's answers on those. And so thank you for joining our webinar. If you want to go to Forums International website, you'll see details of our future events, and the recording of this will be made available by the CICM in the next few days. And we hope we've had a good number of people of attendees today, so hope you've all enjoyed it. And I think it's probably overdue for lunch. So thanks very much, guys. Do you want to just hang on for a second, and we'll say goodbye in a second. So thank you much to everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.